Bradley Beal is a 27-year-old shooting guard who is climbing the ladder of NBA stardom. Unfortunately though, Bradley Beal plays for the Washington Wizards, one of the worst ran franchises for the better part of the last 3 decades. Which means, due to the plethora of poor decision making in the front office, it doesn't really matter how well Bradley Beal plays because it normally does not yield the ideal results. And so as we wait on the day that another disgruntled star gets pushed to another organization, I do want to look back to see how exactly did we get here, because in the beginning stages of Beal's career, it seemed very promising, especially sharing a backcourt with a young John Wall. However, as time has continued to progress, as we can clearly tell, Bradley Beal's time in Washington will not only conclude in a very sour way, but throughout his entire time with the Wizards, you can quite honestly make an argument that his talents, his potential, and who Beal is as a player has been completely wasted.
I ain't never ever seen you act like this before. You getting buckets. How you feel?
In the beginning stages of Bradley Beal's career, he humbly took upon a role to play second option to John Wall, a 6'3" point guard whose athleticism at times could rival Russell Westbrook's, but needed nearly an endless amount of floor spacing to properly balance out the lack of shooting from his playing style, which is something that Bradley Beal was able to fulfill very early on. The duo quickly showed their potential and even had some promise of competing in the Eastern Conference that needed a team to combat LeBron. But unfortunately, the duo fell short for various reasons, but I would argue the biggest one being the playing style that the Washington Wizards decided to opt in with. Wall was an aggressive scorer when it came to attacking the rim and also racked up a lot of assists, but with that playing style came a level of ball dominance that was at a historic rate. If we go back and look at the numbers between 2015 and 2017, John Wall led the NBA in practically every statistical category when it comes to calculating how long an individual handles a ball. And in particular, looking at the 2017 season, John Wall was handling the ball longer than both Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Now on the surface, it may seem as if like this level of ball dominance correlates to making his teammates better. The longer Wall holds the ball, it makes it easier for him to record assists, and many people utilize personal assists to determine how easier it is for a player to get open looks for some of his teammates, thus again making them better. But the truth is, the playing style was actually holding back Bradley Beal. During this 3-year stretch, Beal's progress really wasn't anything of significance. Beal was more so used as an off-ball threat and not really increasing his promise and value when it came to playmaking, ball handling, and facilitating off the dribble. Because of this, it not only manifested into poor performances from time to time, especially in the playoffs, largely due to lack of repetition, but also behind the scene, it has been reported, even from John Wall himself, that there was a level of resentment that was also breeded from this type of relationship. Now, this portion of the video isn't meant to bash John Wall. Actually, I would go as far as saying that the responsibility of diversifying the offense more so is on the shoulders of the coach than it is the player. However, what I am highlighting is that the playing style that best benefited John Wall didn't necessarily make Bradley Beal the complementary player that he was supposed to be in the offense, but rather a player who depended on John Wall at times just because his skill set was not properly utilized in the offense. This sentiment is echoed even further during the 2018 and 2019 seasons, where John Wall would miss huge portion of the years, but Bradley Beal's productivity saw very little, if any, regression, and in many regards, especially when it comes to playmaking, there was a noticeable improvement. And from that, I would argue that the growth of Bradley Beal was largely stagnant for his first 4 to 5 years, thus not even allowing the duo to truly reach their peak. But of course, that's not the only problem that pertains to John Wall.
So he's getting 38, 41, 43, 44 million over the next 4 years, starting next year.
Okay, let's just talk about the elephant in the room, and that is John Wall and his ridiculous contract. Back during the summer of 2017, John Wall signed a 4-year, $171 million contract extension, making the Washington Wizards one of the very first franchises to exercise their option to utilize a supermax contract. Now, at the time, the decision made a lot of sense. John Wall was in his mid-20s, and building your future featuring him alongside Bradley Beal was the best option for Washington. Unfortunately, as time has revealed itself, the idea of a supermax contract has not only been detrimental to many franchises, and on top of that, John Wall, unfortunately for the next handful of seasons, would deal with injuries that would make the already expensive decision even more difficult to manage. During the 2017-2018 season, John Wall was sidelined for 2 months due to a knee injury. Then, during the 2018-2019 season, John Wall was ruled out for the remainder of the year on December 29th after suffering a left heel injury. And then just a few months later, he was ruled out for an entire 12 months because he suffered a ruptured Achilles. Which is unfortunate for everyone because up into these random miscellaneous strings of very significant and career-altering injuries, John Wall was relatively durable. With John Wall being sidelined for most of a 3-year stretch, not only did this mean that Bradley Beal could not compete at any high level, but also this meant that the Washington Wizards financially were stuck with what they had. And to make matters worse, John Wall's contract is not the only poor decision that was made from the Washington Wizards throughout Bradley Beal's career. Back during the 2014 offseason, Washington signed Marcin Gortat to a 5-year, $60 million contract. The reason why this is problematic is because Gortat at the time only had 1 solid year as an NBA starter, and the league was moving further away from traditional big men. Fast forward 2 years later, during the 2016 Kevin Durant sweepstakes, once the Wizards swung and missed on their hometown hero, the franchise decided to default to Ian Mahinmi and pay him a $64 million contract over a stretch of 4 years, which was ridiculous because Mahinmi was playing a backup role, meaning that Mahinmi was now going to be making more than the starting center in Marcin Gortat. But again, the league was moving away from traditional big men. And to make matters worse, Mahinmi dealt with several injuries throughout his entire time in Washington. And oh yes, let me not forget, after John Wall received his contract during the summer of 2017, the Wizards gave a 4-year, $106 million contract to Otto Porter, who at the time at best was being characterized as a third option on a 50-some win team, but being compensated at the same level as a Andre Drummond, a DeMar DeRozan, or even a Jrue Holiday. So even though, yes, it is true, the Wizards would have been limited significantly in terms of trying to piece together a competent roster around Bradley Beal once John Wall was locked down on a Supermax contract and then couldn't produce at any elite level due to injuries. But before any of that happened, the Wizards were already committing to poor financial decision making. And that level of incompetence is also seen in the mismanagement of draft assets.
The Washington Wizards select Jan Vesely from Ostrava, Czech Republic.
Back during the 2011 draft class, the Washington Wizards had 2 first-round picks. The first one was the 6th overall selection, and with it, the Wizards decided to go with Jan Vesely, who we now know is one of the biggest draft busts in the past decade. Jan Vesely is a 6'11 power forward who unfortunately played fewer than 200 games in the NBA before he was finally cut from the Denver Nuggets and no longer could find a job in the league. And with the Wizards' second first-round pick, it is a very similar story. With the 18th overall selection in the 2011 draft, the Wizards decided to go with Chris Singleton, a 6'8 forward who again played fewer than 200 games in the NBA before he was finally cut out of the league. But what makes these draft selections even more problematic are all of the other players that were still available that would have fit extremely well alongside both Bradley Beal and John Wall. Players such as Bismack Biyombo, Klay Thompson, both of the Morris twins, Kawhi Leonard, Nikola Vucevic, and Tobias Harris. But the worst mismanagement of a draft asset has to be the 2017 first-round pick. During the 2017 trading deadline, Washington traded their 2017 first-round pick to the Brooklyn Nets and in return received Bojan Bogdanovic, a 6'8 sharpshooter that fit perfectly with the system of a hyper-athletic point guard in John Wall and a dynamic scorer of Bradley Beal. The transaction not only helped propel the Wizards to a 49-33 record, which is one of the best records in franchise history. By the time Bogdanovic was on the last year of his deal, but he still was on his rookie contract, meaning that in the upcoming free agency class, the Wizards had the right to match whatever offer they seemed fit to bring him back to the team. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The Wizards prioritized John Wall and Otto Porter and then removed the qualifying offer off the table for Bogdanovic so he can go into the market as an unrestricted free agent. And then just a few days later, Bogdanovic would receive an offer from the Indiana Pacers for 2 years and $21 million. Bojan would not only continue to have a career that was on par with Otto Porter, if not better, but more importantly, the draft pick that they gave up to the Brooklyn Nets to receive Bogdanovic turned out to be the 22nd overall pick, and with it, the Brooklyn Nets decided to select Jared Allen. And there are several other questionable decisions that the Washington Wizards have made with some of their draft picks, such as trading their 2014 first-round pick to the Phoenix Suns for Marcin Gortat, even though just a few months later he was going to be a free agent, so they could have just picked him up during the summer, or trading their 2016 first-round pick to the Phoenix Suns for Markieff Morris, which was a lot for a player who at best was going to be the 4th or maybe even 5th option for the Wizards. Or how about the Wizards drafting Jordan Clarkson in the 2nd round during the 2014 draft, which would have been a great fit coming off the bench alongside both John Wall and Bradley Beal, but unfortunately his productivity was never seen in Washington because the Wizards traded him to the Lakers for cash. So, what did we learn today? Now, even though I am aware that it may not be completely fair of me to criticize certain franchises on some of their past mistakes, since hindsight is indeed 2020, however, when the mistakes are done routinely like we've seen with the Washington Wizards, I do believe some criticism should be seen, especially when a franchise possesses a player of the caliber of Bradley Beal. And what's even more eye-opening is that the problems weren't just John Wall injuries. From playing style, poor decision making, and mismanaging money, there is a near endless list of mistakes that the Washington Wizards have committed since drafting Bradley Beal. And as I make this video, the Wizards are in the middle of another horrendous season as they sit at the bottom of a very weak Eastern Conference with one of the worst records in the NBA, while Bradley Beal is having the best season of his career. But with that being said, people, please let me know what you think about the video in the comment section below. What do you think was the biggest mistake that the Washington Wizards have committed to since they drafted Bradley Beal? And as always, make sure you hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.